The nurse asked Bob to remove his clothing and put on a gown before he gets checked by the doctor. In front of you? No way. The nurse says, well, no, but I've seen the naked human body before. Not one like mine, Bob said. You'd die laughing at my naked body. Of course I won't laugh, said the nurse. I'm a professional. In over 20 years, I've never laughed at a patient. Okay then, Bob said, and he proceeded to drop his trousers, revealing a huge male body with the smallest penis the nurse had ever seen in her life. In length and girth, it was almost identical to a AAA battery. Unable to control herself, the nurse tried to stop a giggle, but it just came out. And then she started laughing at the fact that she was laughing. Feeling very bad that she laughed at Bob's private part, she composed herself as well as she could. I am so sorry, she said. I don't know what came over me. On my honor as a nurse and a lady, I promise that it won't happen again. Now tell me, what seems to be the problem? Bob said, it's swollen. A beautiful woman is seated next to a teenage boy on a plane. There is terrible turbulence, and then the plane goes into a sudden nosedive. The captain comes on the intercom and says, I hate to have to tell you this, folks, but we might not walk away from this one. Everyone begins to panic except for the boy, who sheepishly turns to the woman and says, I hate to trouble you, miss, but we might die, and I've never kissed anyone. The woman is at first taken aback, but after a moment realizes she might as well make the kid happy in their final moments and proceeds to kiss him passionately. The boy, elated, goes on, sorry to bother you again after such a lovely kiss, but we might die, and I've never felt a breast. Again, the woman decides there is no harm in it and slides his hand under her shirt. After a good long feel, the boy again says, you've been so kind already, but please, I don't want to die never having gotten a blowjob. Already committed to helping this boy have new experiences before they die, the woman smiles and begins to undo his belt. Just then, the plane levels off. Finally, they landed. As everyone exited the plane, they shake hands with the captain and congratulated him. When the boy's turn came, he said, just a little longer next time, Dad. As a man gets to his plane seat, he was surprised to find a parrot strapped into the seat next to him. Once they are in the air, the stewardess comes round and the man asked her for coffee. The parrot meanwhile squawks, and get me a bloody whiskey, you moron. The stewardess, somewhat dumbfounded, remains composed and brings a whiskey for the parrot, but forgets the coffee. When the man points this out to her, the parrot immediately drains its glass and yells, and get me another darn whiskey while you're at it, idiot. Visibly upset, the shaking stewardess returns shortly with a whiskey for the parrot, but still no coffee. Unused to such slackness, the man loses his temper and decides to try the parrot's approach. He told her, I've asked you twice for a coffee, moron, now go and get it or I'll give you a slap. In a couple of seconds, two burly disguised security personnel grab both him and the parrot, take them to the emergency exits and throw them out. As they are being thrown out of the plane, the parrot turns to the man and says, you know, for someone who can't fly, you've got a big mouth. A man in a Florida supermarket tried to buy half a head of lettuce. The very young produce assistant told him that they sell only whole heads of lettuce. The man persisted and asked to see the manager. The boy said he'd ask his manager about it. Walking into the back room, the boy said to his manager, some asshole wants to buy half a head of lettuce. As he finished his sentence, he turned to find the man standing right behind him, so he added, and this gentleman has kindly offered to buy the other half. The manager approved the deal, and the man went on his way. Later, the manager said to the boy, I was impressed with the way you got yourself out of that situation earlier. We like people who think on their feet here. Where are you from, son? I'm from Canada, sir, the boy replied. Well, why did you leave Canada? Sir, there's nothing but whores and hockey players up there. Really? Asked the manager. My wife is from Canada. No shit, replied the boy. Who'd she play for? When little Johnny got home, he asked his mother why he had a stick and Susie had a hole. Johnny's mother said, oh, son, you have a Ferrari and Susie has a garage. The time will come and you'll park your Ferrari in her garage. When little Susie got home, she asked her mother why she had a hole and Johnny had a stick. Susie's mother told her, you have a garage and Johnny is just a sports car trying to park. Don't let him park in your garage. So a few days pass and sure enough, Johnny and Susie are playing naked again. When Johnny proudly stands up and says, Susie, let me park my Ferrari in your garage, to which she refuses. Johnny continues to insist on parking his Ferrari until Susie has had enough and goes home. When Susie gets home, her mother asks, "Susie, what's all that red stuff on your hands?" To which Susie replied, "Johnny tried to park his Ferrari in my garage, so I ripped the back wheels off." A small church had a very attractive, big-busted organist named Linda. Her breasts were so large that they bounced and jiggled while she played the organ. Unfortunately, this distracted the congregation considerably. The very proper church ladies were disgusted. They said something had to be done about this, or they would have to get another organist. So one of the ladies approached Linda very discreetly about the problem, and told her to mash up some green astringent persimmons and rub them on her nipples and over her breasts, which should cause them to shrink in size. But she warned Linda not to taste any of the green persimmons because they are so sour they would make her mouth pucker up and she wouldn't be able to talk properly for a while. Linda reluctantly agreed to try it. The following Sunday morning, the priest climbed into the pulpit and said, "Thue to circumstantis bewand my control, we will noth have a thurman thode." A man on a train gets up and walks to the door. The conductor notices and says, "Sorry, sir, this train doesn't stop at the next station on Sunday nights." The man looks disappointed, so the conductor adds, "But it does slow down as we pass through. Maybe I can help." As the train eases into the station, the conductor grabs the man by his coat collar and holds him out over the platform. "Start running in the air," he shouts, "so you don't fall when your feet hit the ground." The man flails his legs, finally hitting the platform at a sprint. Just as he's catching his balance, a hand yanks him through the window of the last carriage. Gasping for breath, he looks up at the stranger who grabbed him. The man says, "You're lucky, mate. This train doesn't stop here on a Sunday night." An armed, masked man burst into a bank and yelled, "Everybody put your hands up, this is a robbery." Terrified, the patrons and staff complied. As the robber loaded up his sack with cash, his mask slipped off. He quickly pulled it back up and saw two guys and an older woman, who may have seen his face. He pointed his gun at the first guy and asked, "Did you see my face?" "Sure, I did." He shot him dead on the spot. The robber pointed his gun at the second guy and asked, "Did you see my face?" The second guy said, "No, but my mother-in-law did." A young man was showing off his new sports car to his girlfriend. She was thrilled at the speed. "If I do 200 miles per hour, will you take off your clothes?" he asked. "Yes," said his adventurous girlfriend, and as he gets up to 200, she peeled off all her clothes. Unable to keep his eyes on the road, the car skidded onto some gravel and flipped over. The naked girl was thrown clear, but the man was jammed beneath the steering wheel. "Please go and get help," he cried. "But I can't. I'm naked and my clothes are gone." "Take my shoe," he said, "and cover yourself." Holding the shoe over her crotch, the girl ran down the road and found a service station. Still holding the shoe between her legs, she pleaded to the service station manager, "Please help me. My boyfriend's stuck." The manager looked at the shoe and said, "There's nothing I can do. He's in too far." The preacher liked to coordinate his message with the choir every Sunday. One week, the preacher said, "Brothers and sisters, I'll be preaching this Sunday on the topic of steadfastness in our service to God. What hymn should we sing?" A member of the choir chimed in with, "I shall not be moved." The next week, the preacher said, "Brothers and sisters, I'll be preaching this Sunday on the topic of tithes and gladness in giving to the Lord. What hymn should we sing?" Another member of the choir said, "Jesus paid it all." The following week, the preacher said, "Brothers and sisters, I'll be preaching this week on the evils of fornication. What hymn should we sing?" From the back row, an older choir member sighed fondly and asked, "Precious memories?"